The year was 2087, and Earth stood on the brink of something unimaginable. For centuries, humanity had gazed at the stars, wondering if they were alone in the vastness of space. Scientists spent decades searching for signs of life beyond their planet, launching telescopes, probes, and satellites into the void. But nothing could have prepared them for what happened that day. It began with a burst of light so bright it lit up the skies over every continent simultaneously. At first, people thought it was an asteroid or some kind of cosmic phenomenon. But as the glow faded, a massive object appeared in orbit around Earth. It wasn't just one ship. It was a fleet, dozens of sleek, silver vessels arranged in perfect formation. Their design was unlike anything humans had ever seen: smooth curves, glowing patterns, and an aura of quiet power. Panic spread quickly. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces went on high alert, and news outlets broadcast endless speculation about who or what had arrived. Were these visitors peaceful? Hostile? No one knew. Then came the message. A voice echoed across every communication device on the planet, speaking in flawless English. "Greetings, people of Earth," it said. The tone was calm, almost soothing. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council, a coalition of advanced civilizations dedicated to maintaining peace and prosperity throughout the galaxy. After centuries of observation, we have determined that your species is ready to take its place among the stars." For many, the announcement brought relief. Others remained skeptical, but excitement soon overwhelmed fear. Humanity's wildest dreams had come true. They were not alone. Over the following weeks, delegations from various nations traveled to meet with the Council aboard their flagship, a colossal vessel called the Celestial Nexus. There, they encountered beings unlike anything imagined in science fiction: towering insectoids, shimmering energy forms, and creatures that seemed to shift between dimensions. Each represented a different member of the Council, united under a single goal: guiding younger civilizations toward progress. At first, everything seemed promising. The Council shared knowledge, offering solutions to Earth's most pressing problems. They provided clean energy sources, advanced medical treatments, and technology capable of reversing environmental damage. In return, they asked only for cooperation. Humanity would be granted access to the galactic community, but with conditions. Military expansion was forbidden. Certain areas of research were restricted, and Earth governments were required to dissolve national borders in favor of a unified global authority. While some embraced this new era with open arms, others grew uneasy. Among them was Dr. Alara Voss, a renowned astrophysicist who had dedicated her life to studying the cosmos. She had been chosen to serve as one of Earth's primary liaisons to the Council due to her expertise and diplomatic skills. From the moment she stepped onto the Celestial Nexus, however, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Alara noticed subtle inconsistencies in the Council's behavior. They spoke of uplifting other civilizations, yet their histories were vague and often contradictory. When questioned about specific examples, their answers were evasive. More troubling still was their insistence on limiting human exploration beyond the solar system. According to the Council, such endeavors were unnecessary and potentially dangerous. Humanity's role, they explained, was to focus on self-improvement rather than venturing outward. General Marcus Hawley shared Alara's unease, though his concerns stemmed from a very different perspective. As head of Earth's dwindling defense forces, Marcus viewed the Council's restrictions on militarization as deeply suspicious. He argued that disarming entirely left humanity vulnerable, especially given how little was truly known about the Council's motives. His warnings fell largely on deaf ears, dismissed as paranoia by those eager to embrace the promise of galactic unity. Despite their differences, Alara and Marcus found themselves drawn together by a shared sense of mistrust. During one particularly tense meeting aboard the Nexus, Alara confronted a council representative named Zeteris, a towering insectoid whose multifaceted eyes glinted like polished gemstones. "You claim to want to help us," she said, her voice steady despite the knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. "But why impose so many restrictions? Why limit our potential?" Zeteris tilted its head, mandibles clicking softly. "Your species is young, Dr. Vuss. Impulsive. Without guidance, you risk repeating the mistakes of others, mistakes that led to destruction and chaos. We seek only to protect you from yourselves." Though the explanation sounded reasonable enough, Alara wasn't convinced. Her instincts told her there was more to the story, but proving it wouldn't be easy. The Council controlled all communication channels, monitoring every interaction between humans and extraterrestrials. Any attempt to dig deeper risked exposure and severe consequences. Back on Earth, tensions continued to rise. Some hailed the Council as saviors, while others accused them of stifling human innovation and autonomy. Protests erupted in major cities, demanding greater transparency and freedom. Meanwhile, rumors circulated about secret experiments conducted by the Council within Earth's atmosphere. Reports of strange phenomena, unexplained disappearances, sudden weather anomalies, and mysterious lights in the sky only fueled the growing unrest. Marcus, meanwhile, quietly prepared for the worst. Though officially stripped of his command, he maintained contact with loyal officers and covertly stockpiled resources. If the Council turned hostile, humanity would need every advantage it could muster. Yet even he struggled to imagine what form such hostility might take. Would they attack outright? Or simply tighten their grip until resistance became impossible? As days turned into weeks, Alara grew increasingly desperate to uncover the truth. Late one night, while reviewing data collected during her visits to the Nexus, she stumbled upon something unusual, a faint signal embedded within the Council's transmissions. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably artificial. Intrigued, she isolated the signal and ran it through a decryption program. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. Hidden beneath layers of encryption was a cache of classified information detailing the Council's activities on Earth. According to the files, the Council had been manipulating humanity for centuries, subtly steering events to ensure division and conflict. Wars, economic collapses, even scientific breakthroughs, all had been orchestrated to keep humanity weak and dependent. Worse still, Earth wasn't unique. Dozens of other worlds had suffered similar fates, their populations enslaved or exterminated once they outlived their usefulness. Alara knew she had to act fast. Sharing her findings openly would be suicide. The Council monitored everything. Instead, she reached out to Marcus, arranging a secret meeting in an abandoned facility deep beneath the Nevada desert. There, surrounded by dusty equipment and flickering monitors, she showed him the evidence. Marcus listened in stunned silence as Alara explained what she'd uncovered. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "This changes everything," he muttered. "If word gets out, the Council will crush us before we can even blink." "We can't let that happen," Alara replied firmly. "But we also can't sit back and do nothing. If we don't fight back, they'll destroy us anyway, just slower, piece by piece." Together, they devised a plan. It was risky, perhaps even suicidal, but it offered a slim chance of exposing the Council's deception to the world. Using fragments of stolen technology, they would build a device capable of broadcasting Alara's findings directly to every screen, radio, and satellite on Earth. Once the truth was out, humanity would have no choice but to rise up as they parted ways. Alara felt a spark of hope ignite within her. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but for the first time, she believed victory might be possible. Humanity had always thrived in the face of adversity, adapting and overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could do so again, even against opponents as powerful as the Galactic Council. Little did she know, the real battle was only beginning. The truth weighed heavily on Alara's mind as she left the underground facility. She couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Every second spent in silence gave the Council more opportunity to tighten their grip on humanity. The files she had uncovered painted a grim picture. Earth wasn't just being held back, it was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece, until it became nothing more than a resource for the Galactic Council's insatiable needs. Alara knew she couldn't act alone. Spreading the truth required allies, but trust was in short supply. Governments around the world were already under the Council's influence, with many leaders either complicit or too afraid to oppose them. Even worse, any attempt to expose the Council's deception would be met with swift retaliation. The surveillance drones orbiting Earth ensured that no secrets stayed hidden for long. Every move Alara made was likely being watched, but she wasn't entirely without resources. Over the years, her work as an astrophysicist had earned her connections across the globe, scientists, engineers, and thinkers who shared her curiosity about the universe. Many of these individuals had grown skeptical of the Council's intentions, though none had dared to voice their concerns publicly. Now, with the evidence she had gathered, Alara hoped to rally them into action. Her first step was to reach out to Dr. Isaac Park, a brilliant engineer based in Seoul. Isaac had once worked on reverse engineering, fragments of alien technology recovered from crashed probes. If anyone could help build the device needed to broadcast the Council's secrets, it was him. Alara sent a coded message using an old encryption method they had developed during their research days. Aboma sent a coded message using an old encryption method they had developed during their research days. Abolia sent a coded message using an old encryption message and in her head they had system the Council wouldn't recognize. When Isaac received the message, he immediately understood its urgency. He traveled to a remote safe house in the mountains outside Seoul, where Alara awaited him. The two spent hours poring over the decrypted files, piecing together the full scope of the Council's manipulation. What they found horrified them. Not only had the Council orchestrated wars and economic collapses on Earth, but they had also seeded false information to steer humanity away from key technological breakthroughs. It was a deliberate effort to keep Earth weak and divided, ensuring it remained easy to control. "This is monstrous," Isaac muttered, shaking his head as he scrolled through the data. "They've been playing us like puppets for centuries, and now they're planning to cut the strings," Alara replied grimly. "Once they've drained us dry, we'll be discarded like every other species they've used up." Isaac nodded, his expression hardening. "Then we need to stop them. But how? We can't fight them head on, they're too powerful. That's why we have to hit them where it hurts most, their image. If we can get this information out to the public, people will see the Council for what they really are. They'll rise up." It was a risky plan, but Isaac agreed was worth trying. Together, they began designing a prototype device capable of bypassing the Council's communication grid. Using scraps of alien tech and human ingenuity, they created a small transmitter that could piggyback on existing satellite networks. Once activated, it would hijack every screen, radio, and digital platform on Earth, broadcasting the Council's crimes to billions of people simultaneously. As Alara and Isaac worked, General Marcus Holly prepared for the inevitable fallout. He knew that exposing the Council's deception would trigger a violent response. Humanity might unite against their oppressors, but unity alone wouldn't be enough. They needed weapons, defenses, and a strategy to survive the Council's wrath. Marcus reached out to a network of former military officers and resistance fighters who still believed in Earth's independence. Among them was Captain Elena Torres, a skilled pilot who had once commanded Earth's last deep space exploration mission. Though officially disbanded, Elena and her crew had gone underground, refusing to surrender their ships to the Council's authority. When Marcus contacted her, she didn't hesitate to join the cause. "About time someone stood up to those bastards," Elena said with a fierce grin as she greeted Marcus at a hidden airbase. "What's the plan?" "We're going to hit them where it hurts," Marcus replied. "Their orbital station? If we can disable it, we'll cripple their ability to monitor and control Earth." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You realize that station is protected by an entire fleet of warships, right?" "I do," Marcus said grimly. "Which is why we'll need every advantage we can get." Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Elena assembled a ragtag team of pilots and engineers. They retrofitted old spacecraft with stolen Council technology, creating makeshift weapons and shields. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Meanwhile, hackers within the Resistance worked tirelessly to infiltrate the Council's surveillance grid, disabling key systems and buying precious time for Alara and Isaac to complete their device. Back at the safe house, tensions ran high. Alara and Isaac faced countless setbacks as they struggled to perfect the transmitter. The alien tech they were working with was far beyond anything humans had ever encountered, and understanding its inner workings proved maddeningly difficult. Sleepless nights blurred into endless days as they tested and retested the device, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Finally, after weeks of grueling effort, the transmitter was ready. Alara held the small, unassuming device in her hands, marveling at how something so simple could change the fate of humanity. But getting it operational was only half the battle. They still needed to activate it without drawing the Council's attention, and that meant finding a way to smuggle it aboard one of the Council's own ships. For this, they turned to a man named Viktor Novikov, a smuggler with ties to the black market. Viktor had spent years trading contraband goods between Earth and the outer colonies, evading both human authorities and the Council's patrols. His ship, the Shadowhawk, was equipped with cloaking technology that made it nearly invisible to sensors. If anyone could deliver the transmitter to the right place at the right time, it was him. Viktor listened intently as Alara explained the plan. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "You're asking me to fly straight into the lion's den," he said. "If I'm caught, I'm dead." "You won't be caught," Alara assured him. "And if you succeed, you'll save billions of lives, including your own." After a long pause, Viktor nodded. "All right, I'm in. But don't expect me to stick around once this is over. I didn't sign up for a suicide mission." With Viktor on board, the final pieces of the plan fell into place. The transmitter would be smuggled aboard the Council's flagship, the Celestial Nexus, during a diplomatic summit scheduled to take place in 3 days. While the world's leaders gathered to discuss Earth's future, Alara and Marcus would execute their operation. Alara would ensure the transmitter was activated, while Marcus coordinated a diversionary attack to draw the Council's attention away from the real threat. As the day of the summit approached, nerves frayed to the breaking point. Alara rehearsed every detail of her role, memorizing escape routes and contingency plans. Marcus drilled his team relentlessly, preparing them for the chaos that would follow. Everyone involved knew the stakes. Success meant freedom for humanity. Failure meant annihilation. On the morning of the summit, Alara boarded the shuttle bound for the Celestial Nexus. Her heart pounded as she passed through security checkpoints, the transmitter concealed within a hollowed-out datapad. She forced herself to remain calm, focusing on the task ahead. Beside her sat Viktor, pretending to be her assistant. His presence added a layer of legitimacy to her cover story. though his rough demeanor drew suspicious glances from the Council's guards. Inside the Nexus, the atmosphere was tense. World leaders mingled uneasily with Council representatives, exchanging polite smiles and empty promises. Alara kept her distance, moving through the corridors with purpose. She located the maintenance bay where the transmitter needed to be installed, a BIA hub connecting the ship's internal systems to its external communication array. Slipping inside unnoticed, Alara set to work. Her fingers flew over the controls as she interfaced the transmitter with the Nexus's core. Each second felt like an eternity, her ears straining for any sign of discovery. Just as she finished, alarms blared throughout the ship. "They know!" Victor shouted, bursting into the bay. "We've got company!" Alara cursed under her breath. Something must have triggered the Council's sensors. Grabbing the datapad, she followed Victor toward the nearest exit. Behind them, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Guards armed with energy weapons rounded the corner, shouting orders in a language neither of them understood. "This way," Victor barked, shoving open a hatch that led to a narrow service tunnel. The two scrambled through the cramped passage, their pursuers hot on their heels. Ahead, a ladder led upward to an emergency airlock. If they could reach it, they might stand a chance of escaping. Reaching the top, Victor slammed his fist against the release panel. The airlock hissed open, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. Without hesitation, he leapt through, pulling Alara with him. As the airlock sealed shut behind them, the transmitter activated, sending its signal across the galaxy. Back on Earth, screens flickered to life. Billions of people watched in stunned silence as the Council's crimes were laid bare. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The signal spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of Earth in seconds. Screens flickered on in homes, offices, and public spaces, displaying the undeniable truth. The Galactic Council had been lying to humanity for centuries. The evidence was clear: manipulated wars, suppressed technologies, and a systematic plan to keep Earth weak and divided. People watched in shock as their illusions of progress crumbled before their eyes. For some, anger flared instantly. For others, disbelief gave way to outrage as the reality sank in. On the streets, chaos erupted. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers from leaders who had either ignored the signs or willingly collaborated with the Council. Protesters held up signs reading, "No more lies, and Earth stands alone." In cities across the globe, resistance cells that had once operated in secret now emerged openly, rallying citizens to join the fight. The Council's grip on humanity was slipping, and they knew it. High above Earth, aboard the celestial nexus, alarms blared as the Council scrambled to contain the fallout. Zyderus, the towering insectoid ambassador, stormed into the command center, its mandibles clicking furiously. How could this happen? It demanded, addressing the ship's captain. Find the source of the transmission and destroy it immediately. But finding the source wasn't easy. The transmitter Alara and Victor had installed was buried deep within the Nexus's systems, feeding off its power supply and rerouting signals to bypass detection. By the time the Council realized what had happened, the damage was done. Billions of humans now knew the truth, and they weren't going to forget it. Alara and Victor narrowly escaped the Nexus, fleeing in Victor's cloaked ship, the Shadowhawk. As they hurtled through space, Alara clutched the hollowed-out datapad, her hands trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. She had done it. The truth was out. But she also knew the hardest part was yet to come. The Council wouldn't let this go unpunished. "They'll be coming for us," Victor said grimly, his eyes fixed on the control panel. "And when they do, we better have a damn good plan." Alara nodded, her mind racing. They needed to regroup with Marcus and the others. Together, they could coordinate the next phase of the rebellion. But first, They had to survive long enough to reach Earth. Back on Earth, General Marcus Halley wasted no time capitalizing on the momentum created by the broadcast. He issued orders to his network of resistance fighters, calling for coordinated strikes against key Council targets. Power grids, communication hubs, and surveillance stations were priority objectives. If they could disrupt the Council's infrastructure, even temporarily, it would give humanity a fighting chance. Among those answering Marcus's call was Captain Elena Torres, who led a squadron of retrofitted spacecraft armed with stolen Council technology. Her team launched raids on orbital drones, disabling them one by one. Each victory was small but significant, chipping away at the Council's stranglehold on Earth's skies. Meanwhile, Dr. Isaac Park worked tirelessly to improve the makeshift weapons and defenses being used by the Resistance. Using fragments of alien tech, he developed crude but effective energy shields capable of deflecting the Council's advanced weaponry. These innovations gave human forces a much-needed edge, though they were still vastly outmatched in terms of numbers and firepower. As the rebellion gained strength, so did the Council's response. Warships descended from orbit, targeting cities and military installations with devastating precision. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble as the Council sought to crush dissent before it could spread further. Civilians fled in terror, seeking refuge in underground bunkers and rural areas. It was a brutal reminder of just how powerful their oppressors truly were. Yet despite the destruction, humanity refused to back down. Ordinary people rose up alongside soldiers and scientists, united by a shared determination to reclaim their freedom. Farmers turned their tractors into barricades. Teachers organized supply chains to support fighters on the front lines. Even children contributed, spreading messages of hope and defiance through underground networks. At the heart of the resistance was Alara, who returned to Earth shortly after escaping the Nexus. She reunited with Marcus and Isaac in a hidden command center buried beneath the ruins of an old city. There, they strategized their next move. The Council's orbital station, the same fortress that loomed over Earth like a symbol of oppression, was identified as the primary target. We take out that station, and we cripple their ability to monitor and control us, Marcus explained, pacing the room as he addressed the group. Without it, they lose their advantage. It won't be easy, Isaac warned. That thing is protected by dozens of warships. We're talking about suicide odds here. Then, we don't play fair, Alara interjected. Her voice was steady, her resolve unshakable. We use everything we've got, every trick, every weapon, every ounce of ingenuity. We hit them where they least expect it. Her words inspired the room. They all knew the risks, but they also knew there was no turning back. Humanity's survival depended on this moment. Plans were drawn up, resources allocated, and teams assembled. Every available fighter, pilot, and engineer prepared for the assault of a lifetime. The attack began under the cover of darkness. Resistance ships launched from hidden bases around the globe, converging on the orbital station. Their goal was simple: create enough chaos to allow a strike team, led by Alara and Marcus, to infiltrate the station and disable its core. Without its central hub, the station would collapse, taking the Council's orbital fleet with it. Elena's squadron spearheaded the operation, drawing fire from the Council's warships while smaller vessels slipped past the blockade. Energy blasts lit up the night sky as human pilots engaged in dogfights with their far superior opponents. Many ships were lost, but each sacrifice bought precious seconds for the mission to succeed. Inside the station, Alara and Marcus moved quickly, navigating labyrinthine corridors filled with enemy soldiers. Armed with improvised weapons and sheer determination, they fought their way toward the core. Behind them, Isaac monitored their progress remotely, guiding them through security checkpoints and avoiding traps. At one point, The two found themselves cornered in a narrow passageway, surrounded by council enforcers. Just as all hope seemed lost, reinforcements arrived in the form of Victor and his crew. "You didn't think I'd miss the fun, did you?" Victor quipped, tossing grenades that sent the enforcers scattering. With Victor's help, Alara and Marcus reached the core chamber, a massive room filled with glowing conduits and humming machinery. At the center stood a pulsating sphere of energy, the station's heart. Disabling it would require precise timing and coordination. As Marcus set charges around the perimeter, Alara hacked into the system, overriding failsafes designed to prevent tampering. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and Xetherus entered, accompanied by a squad of heavily armed guards. "You cannot win," the insectoid ambassador hissed, its multifaceted eyes gleaming with fury. "Your species is too weak, too flawed to stand against us." Alara stepped forward, her expression defiant. "You underestimated us," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "You thought we'd bow to your lies, but you forgot one thing: we adapt. We overcome. And now, we're going to show you exactly what happens when you try to hold us down." Before Xetherus could respond, Marcus detonated the charges. The core erupted in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves rippling through the station. Alarms screamed as gravity failed, pulling everyone toward the breach. Alara and Marcus grabbed onto a nearby railing, holding on for dear life as debris flew past them. Outside, the station began to break apart, its destruction triggering a chain reaction among the surrounding warships. Explosions lit up the sky as humanity cheered below. Against all odds, they had struck a decisive blow against their oppressors, but the fight was far from over. As the survivors regrouped, they knew the Council would retaliate with even greater force. Yet for the first time in centuries, humanity stood united not as victims, but as warriors ready to claim their place among the stars. The destruction of the Council's orbital station was a turning point, but it came at a heavy cost. The skies above Earth were filled with smoke and debris as fragments of the shattered fortress rained down like fiery meteors. Below, cities lay in ruins, their streets littered with rubble and the remnants of lives lost. The rebellion had struck a powerful blow against the Galactic Council, but the victory felt hollow amidst the devastation. Alara, Marcus, and the others regrouped in the hidden command center, their faces grim with exhaustion and sorrow. They had achieved what many thought impossible, but the price was steep. Thousands of resistance fighters had perished in the assault, and countless civilians had been caught in the crossfire. Yet there was no time to mourn. The Council's response would be swift and merciless, and humanity needed to prepare for the next wave of attacks. As they assessed the situation, Alara couldn't shake the image of Xetherus from her mind. The insectoid ambassador's final words echoed in her thoughts. "Your species is too weak, too flawed." She knew the Council viewed humanity as expendable, a minor inconvenience to be crushed without hesitation. But she also knew something Xetherus didn't. That humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its numbers. It was its resilience, its refusal to give up, even when faced with overwhelming odds. "We've proven we can fight," Marcus said, breaking the silence. His voice was firm, though his eyes betrayed the weight of everything they had endured. "But this isn't over. The Council will come back stronger, angrier. We need to hit them before they recover." Alara nodded. "We've shown them we're not afraid to strike back. Now we need to show them we won't stop until we're free." Isaac, who had been monitoring communications, spoke up. "I've intercepted some chatter from the Council fleet. They're regrouping near the edge of the solar system. If we act fast, we might be able to catch them off guard." Victor leaned forward, his arms crossed. "You're talking about taking the fight to them? That's insane. Their ships are bigger, faster, and better armed than anything we've got." "It's risky," Alara admitted. "But if we stay here, we're sitting ducks. They'll bombard us into submission. At least this way, we have a chance." Marcus agreed. "If we can disable their command ship, it'll throw their entire fleet into disarray. Without leadership, they'll be vulnerable." The plan was simple yet audacious. Launch a surprise attack on the Council's regrouping forces using every available ship and pilot. It would be a desperate gamble, but it was the only option left. The Resistance began mobilizing immediately, retrofitting ships with whatever weapons and defenses they could scavenge. Engineers worked around the clock, while pilots trained tirelessly for the coming battle. Elena Torres took charge of organizing the fleet. Her experience as a deep space explorer made her an invaluable asset, and her calm demeanor helped steady nerves among the less experienced pilots. "This isn't just about winning," she told her team during a briefing. "It's about showing the galaxy what humanity is made of. If we succeed, we inspire others, other species who've been oppressed by the Council, to rise up too." Her words resonated deeply. For the first time, the Resistance saw themselves not just as fighters for Earth, but as symbols of hope for all those who had suffered under the Council's tyranny. The day of the attack arrived sooner than anyone expected. The Resistance fleet gathered beyond the moon's orbit, hidden from view by its shadow. Ships of all shapes and sizes formed a ragtag armada, their hulls patched together with scraps of alien tech and human ingenuity. Pilots exchanged nervous glances, knowing full well that many of them wouldn't return. Alara stood aboard one of the lead ships, her heart pounding as she watched the Council's fleet loom larger on the horizon. Through the viewport, she could see the massive command ship, a behemoth bristling with cannons and shield generators, at the center of the formation. Surrounding it were dozens of smaller vessels, each more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "This is it," Marcus said, standing beside her. "No turning back now." Alara took a deep breath. "Let's make them regret ever setting foot in our solar system." The signal to engage came moments later. Resistance ships surged forward, engines blazing as they broke cover. The element of surprise gave them a brief advantage, catching the Council fleet off guard. Lasers streaked across the void as human pilots swarmed the enemy, targeting weak points and exploiting gaps in their defenses. Elena led a squadron of fighters straight for the command ship, weaving through a hail of energy blasts. Her maneuvers were daring, almost reckless, but they paid off. One by one, her team disabled the ship's outer turrets, clearing a path for the heavier vessels to close in. Meanwhile, Victor and his crew launched a series of kamikaze-style attacks, ramming their ships into the Council's cruisers. Though costly, these sacrifices created chaos within the enemy ranks, forcing them to divert resources to deal with the unexpected threat at the heart of the battle. Alara and Marcus coordinated the assault from their flagship. Isaac monitored the Council's communications, relaying critical information to the fleet. "They're trying to recalibrate their shields," he shouted over the comm. "If we can overload their core reactor, we can take out the whole ship." Alara wasted no time. She directed a group of engineers to target the command ship's power systems, while Marcus ordered a second wave of fighters to provide cover. The Resistance poured everything they had into the effort, knowing it was their last chance to turn the tide. As the battle raged on, the Council's forces began to falter. Their superior technology was no match for humanity's sheer determination. Pilots sacrificed themselves to protect their comrades, and engineers risked their lives to keep damaged ships operational. Every loss fueled the resolve of those who remained. Finally, after hours of relentless fighting, the Resistance breached the command ship's defenses. A squad led by Elena infiltrated the vessel, planting explosives deep within its core. As they raced back to their ships, the countdown began. "Evacuate now," Marcus barked over the comm. "Get clear of the blast radius." The command ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves rippling through the fleet. Debris spiraled outward, colliding with nearby ships and causing further destruction. Without their leader, the remaining Council vessels descended into disarray, retreating toward the edge of the solar system, back aboard the flagship. Cheers erupted as the survivors celebrated their hard-won victory. Tears streamed down faces as pilots embraced one another, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. They had done the impossible. They had driven the Council away, at least for now. But Ilara knew the war was far from over. The Council's retreat was temporary, and they would return with greater force. Humanity had bought itself some time, but rebuilding and preparing for the next confrontation would require every ounce of strength and ingenuity they possessed. As the fleet limped back toward Earth, Ilara gazed out at the stars. For the first time, they didn't seem so distant or unreachable. Humanity had taken its first steps toward freedom, proving to itself and to the galaxy that it was capable of more than survival. It was capable of shaping its own destiny. And somewhere out there, other oppressed worlds were watching, waiting, hoping. The battle was over, but the scars it left behind were deep and lasting. Earth's skies, once filled with the glow of alien ships, now bore witness to a different kind of light, the fires of rebuilding. Cities lay in ruins, their streets quiet, except for the hum of machinery and the voices of survivors, working together to piece their world back together. The cost of freedom had been high, but humanity refused to let despair take hold. Instead, they turned their grief into action, determined to ensure that such sacrifices would not be in vain. Ilara stood on a hill overlooking what remained of New York City. The skyline she had known as a child was gone, replaced by skeletal towers and craters where buildings once stood. Yet amidst the destruction, there was hope. Makeshift shelters housed families who had lost everything, but still clung to the belief that better days were ahead. Engineers worked tirelessly to restore power grids, while farmers planted crops in fields reclaimed from ash and rubble. Humanity wasn't just surviving. It was adapting, growing stronger with every challenge. Behind her, Marcus approached, his boots crunching against the dry earth. "We did it," he said quietly, though his tone carried more exhaustion than triumph. "For now, at least." "For now," Ilara echoed, turning to face him. Her expression softened as she studied his weary features. "But this isn't the end. The Council will come back. When they do, we need to be ready." Marcus nodded. "We've proven we can fight them, but fighting isn't enough. If we're going to stand a chance, we need allies. Other species, other worlds, they've seen what we've done. Maybe some of them will join us." Ilara's eyes lit up at the thought. It was true. The rebellion hadn't gone unnoticed. Across the galaxy, oppressed civilizations watched Earth's defiance with a mix of awe and fear. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled through intimidation and subjugation, crushing any hint of resistance before it could spread. But now, for the first time, someone had struck back and won. With Isaac's help, Ilara began analyzing intercepted transmissions from beyond the solar system. Many were garbled or encrypted, but fragments of conversations hinted at unrest among the Council subjects. Some spoke of rebellion, others of escape. One message in particular caught her attention, a plea for aid from a distant planet called Valora, whose people had been enslaved by the Council for generations. They begged anyone who could hear them to come, not to save them, but to teach them how to save themselves. "This is it," Ilara said, showing Marcus the decoded message. "If we reach out to these worlds, show them we're willing to stand with them, maybe we can build something bigger than just Earth. A coalition. A galactic resistance." Marcus frowned, his brow furrowing as he considered the risks. "It's dangerous. The Council controls most of the galaxy's travel routes. Getting to Valora or anywhere else won't be easy. It's our best shot, Alara insisted. "We can't win this alone. And if we don't try, then what was all this for?" After much debate, the decision was made. Using the remnants of stolen council technology, Isaac and his team modified several ships to withstand long-distance space travel. These vessels weren't luxurious. They were cramped, patched-together affairs, but they were functional. Each ship carried a small crew of volunteers, led by trusted members of the Resistance. Among them were Elena Torres, Viktor Novikov, and a handful of engineers and scientists eager to share Earth's newfound knowledge. Before departing, Alara addressed the crews gathered in the hangar bay. "This mission isn't just about helping another world," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It's about proving that the Council's power isn't absolute, that even in the darkest times, there's always a spark of hope. Show them what we've learned, inspire them to rise up. Together we can change the galaxy." Her words resonated deeply, fueling the resolve of those preparing to leave. As the ships launched into the void, Earth's defenders watched with bittersweet pride. They knew the journey would be perilous, but they also knew it was necessary. For too long, the Council had ruled unchallenged. Now, humanity was planting the seeds of revolution across the stars. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Marcus focused on fortifying the planet against future attacks. He oversaw the construction of underground bunkers, shielded communication networks, and advanced defense systems reverse-engineered from alien tech. Every day brought new challenges, but progress was undeniable. Slowly but surely, humanity was becoming stronger, not just militarily, but culturally. The unity forged during the rebellion continued to grow, transcending borders and ideologies. People no longer saw themselves as citizens of individual nations. They saw themselves as part of something greater. One evening, as Marcus walked through a refugee camp outside London, he was approached by a young girl clutching a crude model spaceship. "Is this what you used to fight the aliens?" she asked, holding it up for him to see. He knelt down, smiling gently. "Something like that. Why? Are you thinking of building one yourself?" She nodded eagerly. "I want to help protect Earth when I grow up." Her innocence brought a lump to his throat. Children like her were the reason they fought, not for revenge, but for a future where no one would have to live under oppression again. "Good," he said, ruffling her hair. "We'll need people like you." Weeks passed, and reports began trickling in from the ships sent to Valora. Against all odds, they had reached the planet safely, finding its inhabitants desperate but resilient. With Earth's guidance, the Valorans began constructing weapons and defenses of their own, learning to adapt alien technology to suit their needs. Inspired by Earth's example, they vowed to rise up against their oppressors, sparking a chain reaction among neighboring worlds. Back on Earth, Alara received a transmission from one of the ships, a recording of the Valoran leader addressing their people. "For too long we have lived in fear," he declared, his voice trembling with emotion. "But now, thanks to our friends from Earth, we know that fear does not define us. We are free, and we will fight for that freedom." Tears streamed down Alara's face as she listened. This was why they had risked everything, to ignite a spark of hope that could spread across the galaxy. Humanity had faced unimaginable odds and emerged victorious, not because of superior strength, but because of its ability to adapt, persevere, and inspire Dodd as night fell over Earth. Alara climbed to the roof of the command center, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere out there, rebels were rising, united by a shared dream of freedom. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a choice, a chance to break free from the chains of oppression and forge a new path. And humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, stood at the forefront of that change. They had unleashed not weapons or vengeance, but something far more powerful: hope. Hope that even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could prevail. Hope that together, anything was possible. Behind her, Marcus joined her on the rooftop. Neither spoke. Words weren't needed. Together, they watched the stars, knowing that the real battle was only beginning. But they also knew something else, that whatever came next, humanity would face it head-on, unafraid and unbowed. For the first time, the galaxy belonged not just to the powerful, but to the brave. And humanity had proven itself worthy of both.